In 1966, the Chicago Bears drafted the son of a Pennsylvania coal miner in the 4th round. Doug Buffone would go on to play 15 seasons for the Bears and later be named one of the 100 greatest Bears of all time. His allegiance to the Bears never waned, even when he took to the microphone and witnessed some horrendous Bears teams.
The fact is, there's not the fear put into them, because this game is a lot about fear. You either do the job, or you go home and go sell hamburgers at McDonald's.
Doug told it like it is, and that's part of the reason his nephew John has dedicated this show to Doug. And now John Buffone is spreading Buffone-branded beratements just like his uncle.
Win the football game. You're the head coach. I don't care what you have your fingers in. I don't care what you're meddling in. You're the head freaking coach. We get it. You're the most important guy on the staff. You don't have to keep trying to legitimize that.
And he's got pep talks too.
I love this team. And I know everyone watching and listening loves this team. So while we may be pessimistic and cynical, every one of us still has hope that the stars will align at some point. And if that ever does happen, you'll be glad you stuck around.
John is telling it like it is here on Buffone 55. And joining John are Alyssa Barbieri, managing editor of USA Today's NFL Wires, including Bears Wire, and also Danny Shimon, lead game and draft analyst for the Barroom Network. Buckle up and bear down. This is Buffone 55, the John Buffone Show.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Buffone 55, a fast-paced approach at breaking down those Chicago Bears. My name is John Buffone, and with me as always is my co-host and producer Alyssa Barbieri. Alyssa, week 1 is here. Can you believe it? We get real, honest-to-goodness regular season football this week. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It feels like Christmas Eve. I'm just like you're waiting for it. How long have we been just waiting for actual football to talk about? No more preseason, no more training camp, no more draft. We're about to get into actual games that count. And what better way to start against the biggest rivals that the Bears have in the Packers? I'm ready to go.
Without a doubt, we the whole offseason we play up to this. It's, we got 2 more months, 3 more months. Okay, hey, we're within 60 days. Hey, it's the draft. Oh, we're going into OTAs and oh my God, mini camp and then training camp. We're literally there now. We are days away from week 1 where these games count, and it is against the Green Bay Packers. I could not be more excited to be a part of this show and start talking about the 2023 Chicago Bears. And Alyssa, we got a new format for Buffone 55 this year that involves some of the classics, but also some new wrinkles. So before we jump in, can you give everyone a rundown of how Buffone 55 is going to work this year?
Absolutely. So we're going to begin this year with the classic B55 segment. That's when I ask John 5 questions about the Bears, and his responses must be completed within 55 seconds. The 55 is John's way of paying tribute to the great Doug Buffone, his uncle, his mentor, and a man who played 15 seasons with the Bears and wore number 55. Then at halftime, we're going to break down the Bears' upcoming opponents, and we are coming out of the gates hot in week 1. We'll be looking at the Jordan Love-led Green Bay Packers. And then we're going to finish things up with a free-for-all that we call Buffone's Basement, where Danny Shimon's going to join John and me, and the 3 of us are going to go through some of the current issues with the Bears. So, John, think you can handle this new format because you're not going to get much time to warm up?
You know what? I didn't limber up. I didn't do my calisthenics. I might pull something, but you know what? If we got to go 0 to 100, that's how I like to do it anyway. So let's do it.
If we can do it, the Bears can do it.
You're right.
Here we go. It is time for our B55 segment, and that's when I'm going to ask John 5 Bears questions here, and his responses must be completed within 55 seconds. Let's get it started. So, John, just like you don't get to ease into this show, the Bears don't get to ease into their 2023 season. While they do start off at Soldier Field, they're going to face their biggest rivals in the Green Bay Packers. So, John, you said that this game you had circled on your calendar for a while, but just how important is this week 1 matchup? You have 55 seconds, and we're off.
Look, I don't want to be too hyperbolic here, but I think it's massively important. The Bears have to be able to show that they are trending in the right direction, and their arc is higher than the Green Bay Packers. This game is at Soldier Field. The Bears are about a 1-point favorite right now, and I cannot think of a better way of ushering in the 2023 season than to beat Green Bay and have Justin Fields go up 1-0 against Jordan Love in this new head-to-head series that gets underway, which I'm sure people are going to keep tabs on. And by the way, when's the last time people honestly felt that the Bears had an advantage at quarterback? Probably not in my lifetime. And on the other end, if the Bears lose, the national narrative goes back to the Bears are, they're the lower part of this rivalry, no matter who the quarterback is. The Bears rebuild didn't do enough. They're not ready to compete in the NFC North because they can't even beat Jordan Love at home in week 1. So I know you aren't supposed to put too much stock into week 1, but I'm kind of putting too much stock into week 1, and I'm praying I'm not setting myself up for a fall.
Yeah, no, this is a big game. I mean, when you kind of look at obviously the rivalry and just how bad the Bears have been beaten, they're 3-23, dating back to 2011, which is just brutal. Obviously, going against Aaron Rodgers, that's a big part of it. But now this is a new chapter. It's a fresh start. Listening to Justin Fields talk today kind of about, he's not looking to the past with this rivalry. He's focused on the present, which is what you want to hear. But it's also a great opportunity for him to really, put his stake in this rivalry and start to turn things around, kind of like how we felt things were going in the offseason. So, I mean, there's a reason this is the main late game on Fox. And I'm just really excited to see it because now it kind of feels like this is the closest that we've been with the Bears-Packers rivalry because it's been so one-sided. But now you're starting to feel things like the playing field level a little bit. So it's going to be fun to actually experience a game and not be absolutely terrified because Aaron Rodgers is just going to find a way to beat the Bears because it's just like written in the stars. So, but this is a big game because you can start off the year 1-0, potentially start out, as, the top seed or top team in the division, depending on how the rest of the people shake up. So, I mean, it's a big one.
It is. And if you flub this one or you don't play well against this one, you got to wait until week 18 to see them again. And that's you got to wait 17 weeks to play the Packers again. I'd rather have a winning taste in my mouth rather than being like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I got to wait this long to try to get revenge." I'm not trying to turn this into the Super Bowl, but for me, this is a game of high importance.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I think because they haven't beaten the Packers since 2018. We have never had a show on Buffone 55 where I've been here where we've been celebrating a Bears win over the Packers. So I'm really hoping we can change that.
For as long as you've been on this show, you have not celebrated a win over the Packers. That is sad. And quite frankly, I think I might have only had one. So I think there might have been one win over the Packers that we've been doing this game. We've been doing this show for 7 years. I think maybe one win. I will have to go back and look at it. But yeah, that's sad when you think about it. For a Chicago Bears podcast to only be able to talk once or twice about a win over the Packers. But I digress. Hopefully that's on the way. Hopefully that's going to turn around.
Yeah, I don't want to think too far in advance, but man, it'd be fun to come on here and celebrate next week.
You ain't kidding.
Okay, John, so let's talk about some of Justin Fields' weapons. So the receiver room looks very different heading into week 1 of 2023 than it did last season. So let's do some prognosticating. It's safe to assume most people believe that DJ Moore is going to finish with the most receiving yards among all the Bears wideouts, barring injury. But who do you believe will be the runner-up in that category? You've got 55 seconds.
Well, you have some options there. Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool, and even Cole Kmet if you think he's going to take a big step forward. But if you're the Bears organization, ideally, I think you probably want Chase Claypool to be second in statistics this year. I'm not saying that's my personal preference, but because I would love a Darnell Mooney explosion year. You guys know how much I love Darnell Mooney. I actually mocked him to the Bears back in 2020. But the Bears gave up a second-round pick to bring in Chase Claypool, which ultimately became the equivalent of a first-round pick. And you want to see a return on that investment. He's bigger, taller, and he's actually younger than Darnell Mooney as well, albeit 9 months, but he's still younger. And he's a guy that you hope can bring down double-digit touchdowns in a season. Darnell Mooney has never caught more than 4 touchdowns in a season. Claypool had 9 his rookie year before he hit the skids with the Steelers. The Bears saw something in this guy. They spent some valuable draft capital on him, and they got to see who they're going to pay next year. So I think they probably try to see Claypool rise to the occasion.
It's actually crazy to think that they're can choose from in this category.
That's true.
Answer, because last year it was just Mooney, right? Heading into the season, Mooney was the top guy, and now you have DJ Moore, and then obviously you have Claypool and Mooney and Cole Kmet, right, who led the team in receiving yards and touchdowns. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of options, but kind of going off, Chase Claypool, I feel like he really has a big chip on his shoulder. Not only is he in a contract year like Darnell Mooney, but I mean, there's just been so many people ragging on him this offseason, which I mean is understandable considering, what the Bears gave up for him, but he was in an unfair advantage or situation last season. So it'll be exciting to see what he can do this season, especially after that strong training camp that he had before he went down with injury. So, I mean, there really are a few options from here. And I mean, I guess I might put my money behind Claypool on this one.
Yeah. If he continues how apparently the reports out of camp where he had a very strong camp, and let's hope that continues. But he was banged out. He's got that hamstring. Darnell Mooney coming off an injury. But like you said, it's not like last year where we're hoping that Byron Pringle or Equanimous St. Brown somehow rise to the occasion, or Bayless Jones explodes into the NFL after being a third round pick. So this is at least there are some real actual options that you put on there behind DJ Moore, where there's viable options at number 2, and you just don't have a bunch of $1 scratch offs that you hope have $1 million on them. So it's going to be an interesting year, and quite frankly, I'd love to see all 3 of them, plus Cole Kmet, have great seasons. And, all of a sudden, Justin Fields throws for 4,000 yards, first one ever in Bears history, and there's plenty of yards and touchdowns to go around. In a perfect world, we'll have to see how it plays out.
I'm really looking forward to potentially having a lot of firsts here on Buffone 55,
yes.
Like celebrating a 4,000-yard passer. Can you imagine at the end? For the first time they make the playoffs, where it's not just because they snuck in on that extra spot. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's exciting. Oh my goodness. Well, okay, I have to stop. I know
Alyssa, you're setting yourself up for a lot of emotional distress coming down the line. We don't normally pump ourselves up like this, but it is week 1. So I guess if we're going to do it, now's the time to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I know better, and yet I do it every year.
It's what we do.
But I'm hoping that this year feels different. So
they all feel different.
Okay, John. So we're going to move to the defensive side of the ball. It's been well documented that the 2022 version of this Bears defense had little to no pass rush, with some nice additions over the offseason. Who do you think will lead the Bears in sacks in 2023, and how many will he have? 55 seconds are on the clock.
Well, that bar isn't set very high, is it? But let's hope that the safety position is not leading the Bears in sacks again this year. But I think you have to go with Yannick Ngakoue. I know some people think this guy is ancient because he's been with 5 teams since 2019, but he's only 28, and he's averaged 8 sacks per season since he came into the league in 2016. He had 9.5 sacks last year with Indianapolis. He had 10 with the Raiders the year before that. So it's not like he's been a bum the past few seasons. And even if he hits his career average, it will double what the Bears sack leader from last year had. I'm sure he'll get rotated in and out. I'm not convinced that he's in the Bears' long-term plan, but for 2023, he's probably going to be your best pass rusher. If not him, maybe DeMarcus Walker. He hit his stride in Tennessee last year with a career high 7 sacks. He could be a force, but I'm going to go with Ngakoue here, and let's hope he gets to that 8 to 10 sack range. And if he does get 8 to 10 sacks, I think that will be worth the investment they made in him this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, listening to that question, I'm like, I feel like Yannick Ngakoue is like the answer. He should be the only answer because of what they paid for him and the impact that he should have. And like you said, he's good. He's been good for 8 sacks and at least since entering the league. And, for a pass rush. Yeah, I was listening to reading off all of those stats, and I'm like, I forgot how bad the pass rush was last season. Oh, yeah. Like Jaquan Brisker leading the team in sacks. I'm like, oh no, it was as bad as you can imagine. But going out and getting someone like Ngakoue, I mean, I think he's going to have a big impact, obviously, on this team. And I think, like you mentioned, DeMarcus Walker, who, when he was signed, he was brought in to be that top guy, I mean, at the time in free agency. So now, he's going to have more opportunities to crank those sacks up. And he's coming off a career year, and he's, kind of listening to the kind of guy he is, he's very vocal, he's hungry, and he wants to go out there and prove people wrong. So, I mean, I'm excited. I'm not getting overly optimistic because you got to prove it to me first, but At this point, I think Ngakoue is the easy answer. But I think DeMarcus Walker, hopefully Dominique Robinson will be in for a big year 2 in year 2.
And then hopefully some of those D tackles create a lot of opportunities as well. I'm not going to think they're going to lead the team in sacks, but let's hope that the D line is at least, in the top 15. And then you have a great linebacking core and a good secondary. You just need the defensive line to rise to the occasion a little bit. And there's a lot of unknowns there, a lot to be excited about, but also a lot to be, I don't want to say concerned, but a lot to watch. We'll say there's a lot to watch there.
Definitely. But like you said, as long as we don't have a defensive back leading the team in sacks, I am good to go.
I'll be happy with that. I mean, baby steps are
progress.
Good. Yeah, it's good to have goals.
Oh, that it is. Okay, so we talked about the free agent additions. So now let's switch to the rookies. The Bears had plenty of draft picks back in April, but who do you think will make the biggest impact in 2023? And then who do you think will have the biggest long-term impact? You know the drill, 55 seconds.
Well, let's go ahead and start with immediate impact. Tyreek Stevenson, the second-round corner out of Miami, is going to be on the field a lot this year. We saw the physicality, the playmaking ability, and he could really tilt some games if he can create turnovers and hold down the outside opposite Jalen Johnson. Peter King actually has Stevenson ranked second to win Defensive Rookie of the Year behind Jalen Carter. So obviously, he has impressed Peter King, who has seen his fair share of prospects throughout his 40-year career. But he'll make some flubs this year, but I also think he'll make some incredible plays. As for the long term, I really hope it's Darnell Wright, their first-round pick this year at right tackle. The Bears need a stud on the line. This is that is going to be there for the next 8 to 10 years. You don't have to keep having these conversations about, well, should they move someone else over there? Or how about we move this guy over here? Darnell Wright, if he is as good as we think and hope, he will be a stalwart on this line, a line that desperately needs some stability moving forward.
Yeah, you and I, again, same wavelength. You're talking immediate impact. And I mean, Tyreek Stevenson is going to be, someone who is going to be thrust out there immediately, him and Darnell Wright especially. So, I mean, I think, looking at Stevenson, we saw it with Kyler Gordon last season too, is he's going to be targeted often. People, opposing offenses tend to stay away from Jalen Johnson if they can. So, I think that Tyreek Stevenson is going to have plenty of opportunities to prove himself. It's going to be, he's going to have a share of ups and downs. He's a rookie, and it comes with the territory and at that position. But I do think that ultimately this season, because he's going to have, the most snaps out there compared with some of the other rookies, that he's going to have the biggest immediate impact. But I'd also probably put Javon Dexter up there too. I'm hoping that he kind of plays his way into additional reps and perhaps into a starting role as the season progresses. And I feel like he's someone that could really be an immediate impact player. And like you said, Darnell Wright, I mean, when's the last time the Bears drafted an offensive tackle that has been a cornerstone of the franchise? It's been a while, and I know I'm just, I'm getting a little nervous. But no, I think that Darnell Wright, I think ultimately he's going to have the biggest long-term impact on this team. We saw with Braxton Jones, a 5th-round rookie last year. He had a pretty decent rookie season, and now he's had an offseason under his belt, and he's getting better. And I feel like with Wright, we have to be patient.
Sure.
But we're hoping to see kind of what we saw a little bit from Braxton Jones last season, that it's something that he can handle the task, especially when Justin Fields is the franchise at this point. So you need to make sure that he is standing as much as possible.
Yeah. He's important to the progression of Justin Fields, where immediately I just feel like Stevenson, I feel like with teams knowing that a rookie's starting on the outside, they're going to try to test him, and they're going to try to go after him a few times. And so that's where I think there's going to be some mistakes. There's going to be some bad penalties, but I also think that he's going to rise to the occasion a few times. Like when they test him, he's going to make them pay for it. So it'll be really fun to watch him play this year, and then also see the progression of Darnell Wright to see what they're building with that line. So, and like you said, Dexter, that's a big draft pick too. They really want him to work out, and hopefully he finds his rhythm where he can become a game wrecker, and hopefully he'll let the ends crash a little bit more. So there's a lot to watch on the defensive side of the ball.
There is, and also on the Stevenson topic, I feel a lot more comfortable knowing that it's Jordan Love back there in this game instead of Aaron Rodgers, because we saw what Rodgers did to Kyler Gordon. Yeah. My goodness. So I feel a little bit better heading into this Bears-Packers game.
I'll be cautiously optimistic, but it's just, I don't know. It's some kind of Packer PTSD I got when it's just like, it doesn't matter who's back there. Something's going to go wrong. So I'm just trying to be cautiously optimistic with this.
Hey, it's all we can do right now. Okay. Right. So we're going to end on this. The Bears-Packers rivalry opens up a new chapter on Sunday. For the first time in almost 2 decades, since both of us have been following the Bears, Aaron Rodgers, or Brett Favre, I should add to this, will not be the week 1 starter for the Packers. So the Bears are actually slight favorites in this game, and the two rivals won't meet again until week 18. So, John, you already talked about the importance of this particular game as far as what it means to the 2023 season, but what does it mean to the rivalry overall? No clock needed for this one. Bring us home.
Well, you already know how I feel about this game, but as for the rivalry as a whole, I think it's just important. Here's some background for those of you who may not know. The Bears are currently behind the Packers in the all-time series, 105-95. The Packers are currently on an 8-game winning streak in this series, and last year, the Packers beat the Bears and surpassed Chicago as the all-time winningest franchise in the NFL. The Bears haven't won a decade against the Packers since the 1980s. The 2010s were a disaster with Green Bay going 17-4, and the 2020s are on the same track with the Packers already up 6-0. You know, in 1992, when Brett Favre came to Green Bay, the Bears had a 24-game lead in this series. That is 12 games worth of regular season games that they were ahead. And now they're down 10. At some point, a new chapter has to start. At some point, the tide has to turn and the story needs to pivot. And we get a chance on that new chapter on Sunday. Jordan Love versus Justin Fields. And I want to be on the winning side of that new chapter. I don't want to look up this rivalry online and see another decade lit up in green. But if it's going to turn, it needs to turn now. That'll do it for B55 when we'll preview the Bears' upcoming opponent, those Green Bay Packers, right after this quick message.
The fall is where we rock here at the Barroom Network with over 15 shows scheduled from September to January. Make sure you subscribe to the Barroom Network's YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts.
Before we bring Danny in for Buffone's Basement, let's see this Aldo Gandia report on the Green Bay Packers.
Rodgers is gone. The future Hall of Famer and self-proclaimed owner of the Chicago Bears is off to the Big Apple. Finally, we'll see if 2020 first-round draft pick Jordan Love is destined to build on the Brett Favre Rodgers legacy of quarterback dominance in the NFL. In preseason action, Love had a 63.6% completion rate for 183 yards and 3 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. Quarterback gurus J.T. O'Sullivan and Kurt Warner looked at the tape, and knowing Love faced vanilla defenses, still saw promise with the rhythm of his play and where his eyes went to on almost every play.
Now, does he make every single play? No. Or the precision with some of the accuracy that maybe Green Bay people have been used to in the past. It's not going to look like that right away.
But how definitive he was, getting back, seeing it, eyes in the right spot, ball out, pretty accurate for the most part when his feet were set, good on the naked bootlegs.
I do think it's really encouraging, just the rhythm that he plays with. It looks like it's very, very hijacked from Aaron Rodgers, which I think is a really good thing.
All I'm telling you is that when you watch the tape, there's been some really, really good things that leave me optimistic that he's going to play some really good football this year, even if he has some bumps in the road.
Love attributes a large part of his preseason success to the offensive line.
I don't even think I got hit in the pocket at all.
We got a lot of confidence in that group. I think we got a chance to be pretty good up front. It'll be nice to get David out there as well. Obviously, he's one of the best in the business. So,
Andy Herman, owner of the Pack-A-Day podcast, looks at that line.
Right now, it seems like Bakhtiari will start at left tackle, Elton Jenkins at left guard, Josh Myers at center, John Runyon Jr. at right guard, and then Zach Tom at right tackle. There is some question at the center right tackle spot. That's the way they ended training camp and preseason for about the last 2.5 weeks, was with that lineup, and that's what I expect it to be.
The wide receivers and tight ends Love will try and connect with are greener than the uniforms they'll wear.
3 rookie tight ends, 3 rookie wide receivers, 3 second-year wide receivers, and that is basically it for the weapons outside for Jordan Love. So not only is he a first-time starter, but he has a ton of inexperience and youth surrounding him as well.
Before Bears fans begin bloviating about the advantage their defense will have when the Packers' offense is on the field, they must remember that the team's run defense was the worst in the NFL last season. In fact, in their 2 2022 meetings, the Packers outrushed the Bears by 20 or more yards in each of their games.
I think you're going to see the same Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon that we've come, to expect. And Aaron Jones hasn't looked like he's lost a step at all. Dillon trying to be a little bit more explosive this year.
Questions about the Packers are not just limited to the offense. They extend to the defense as well.
This is a defense that has 8 or 9 first-round picks on it, a bunch of high-priced free agents. But the sum has never been better than the parts, and we've not seen Joe Barry, or really Mike Pettin, or even Dom Capers before that be able to get out of this defense what they've been expecting and what they've wanted to have. So I think this is a team that in preseason showed that they can rally to the football, that is energized. You can tell that they want to be a top defense this season, but until we see it on the field, right now they are just sort of a paper defense.
Bears offensive coordinator Luke Getsy will look to exploit the Packers' weak spots, and that begins in the defensive backfield.
Darnell Savage and Rudy Ford are likely the starters at safety. Both of them were benched just last season, and Rudy Ford is basically back on a 1-year sort of prove-it deal, very small amount on his contract. Darnell Savage only back basically because they guaranteed his 5th-year option last year and basically had no other choice than to keep him. So safety's been a big-time issue, and that's going to be one of the really big question marks for Green Bay.
The Bears' game plan will certainly be tailored to showcasing their run game, and that means the Packers' interior linebackers will be put to the test.
The 2 players in particular, Devondre Campbell and Quay Walker, and the reason that they're going to be so interesting to watch is because 2 years ago, Devondre Campbell was a first-team All-Pro. Green Bay kind of got him off the scrap heap from Arizona. He had a phenomenal year. The first-team All-Pro was not just by default. He had a fantastic season and played great. And then last year didn't look anything like that player. Looked more like the player that we saw in Atlanta and in Arizona prior to his time in Green Bay. Injuries plagued him a little bit, but which Devondre Campbell they get, is it the All-Pro or is it the one we saw last year, is going to have a huge impact on this season. And then last year's first-round pick, Quay Walker, some really flash plays that we saw, but no consistency, struggled to get off of blocks, and you could tell his head as a rookie was just swimming from time to time.
What should last season's most sacked quarterback in the NFL expect from the Packers pass rush?
If I had to guess, I think they're going to start with trying to get there with 4. I think they really like their rotations at edge. We mentioned Rashawn Gary. He's going to probably be on a pitch count, but I would expect him to be in on some obvious pass down situations. Preston Smith, I think he's at a point where you don't want to play him, 55 snaps anymore. I think they're going to be able to rotate him in and out. Kingsley Enagbare has maybe made the biggest jump from rookie year to second year of all of last year's rookies so far, at least in training camp and preseason. You've got Lucas Van Ness, the first round pick. Even Justin Hollins and Brenton Cox, their 5th and 6th guys. Yes, they kept 6 edge rushers, have shown some promise as well. So they have the bodies to rotate in there. And then on the interior, they really went away from the slower prodding, Kenny Clark's and kind of the more physical defensive linemen. Now instead, they've went with the penetrating guys. Devontae Wyatt is in there. Obviously, Kenny Clark's still in there. He can penetrate as well. They've got 2 rookies in Colby Wooden and Carl Brooks, who are more penetrating guys. So I think this is a team that is going to look to penetrate into the backfield, both on the edge and on the interior. And I think they're going to try to get there with 4 first.
As for special teams, the Packers have strengths and questions.
Keyshawn Nixon, first-team All-Pro returner last year. They didn't start having him return until about midway through the season last year. He should get the full season as at least at minimum at kick returner, probably see some at punt returner as well. And then Jaden Reed, maybe the cleanest punt return catcher that I've ever seen in my life. It just looks so incredibly natural to him, so wouldn't shock me if he got some punt return opportunities. And then the big one is going to be Anders Carlson, their rookie kicker, who had a roller coaster, to say the least, of a training camp in preseason. Went through a huge stretch where he couldn't make anything, and then he'll just completely crush some 60-yarders, and it's just been all over the place. So you're holding your breath and feeling about the same level of confidence, whether it's an extra point or a 65-yarder. You just have no idea. So it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster to continue with the rookie kicker, to say the least.
On Wednesday afternoon, the Packers released their injury report, and both of their starting wide receivers were listed out with hamstring issues. Will they play on Sunday? We'll see. Aldo Gandia for Buffone 55.
Big thanks to Aldo Gandia for that special report on the Green Bay Packers, giving us an insight on what the Bears are up against this Sunday. And now it's time for Buffone's Basement, and you know what that means. It's time to bring in Danny Shimon. Danny, the fan favorite. How you doing, buddy?
What's up, guys? How are you?
Oh, it couldn't be more excited. We got week 1 football. It's the anticipation is building, but the time is finally here. I mean, you've been in it since, draft season. We're going through all these prospects, and finally 6 months later, 5 months later, it's time to jump into week 1 football. This is the culmination of all that work. And so let's go ahead and start with something that Aldo kind of signed off on. It was the injury report. The Packers, both wide receivers, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, dealing with hamstring injuries. Danny, you just came on. I want to know what you think. Is this gamesmanship? Do you think there really is some injury? Is there a chance that one or both of these guys could be questionable going into Sunday, and what that means for the Bears?
Well, I know Romeo Doubs has been dealing with an injury all throughout preseason, the hamstring injury, and then I think Christian Watson just kind of came up maybe the last couple of days. So, is it gamesmanship? Probably could be. Do I expect both of them to play? At least one, I do expect to play. So, we'll both play, probably, but at least I'm pretty confident at least one of those guys will play.
Now, Alyssa, let's stay with the wide receiver. Let's just say both of them play. Is this the first time in a while where you think the Bears have an actual legitimate advantage at wide receiver?
I think they do, which is actually crazy to think that the Bears have an advantage in this game. But when you kind of look at the Packers and they had that youth and that inexperience, and then you look at the Bears and they have a lot of that. I mean, obviously they had Tyler Scott, a rookie, but there are a lot of veteran experience wideouts in that room, whether it's DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, even Equinemius St. Brown, which I think is a big reason why he's still here again. So, I mean, I do think that when you kind of look at the situation that Jordan Love is in this season, where he has, a group of even tight ends, right? Which I'm sure we'll get to, whether it's wideouts or tight ends that are relatively young and inexperienced. And that's something that, Justin Fields has had to deal with over the last couple of years at times. So, whether it's they're being young or they're inexperienced and they're not really, second receivers, like we saw Dante Pettis played a lot more than we would have liked last season. So, I mean, I really feel like Justin Fields has the advantage here with his wideouts, including a couple that he already worked with before this season.
You mentioned those tight ends, and Danny, I need to get your opinion on Luke Musgrave here, because that was a big investment for the Green Bay Packers. It's a guy that the Bears are going to be seeing a lot of. What is your read on Musgrave, and can he be the next big thing and maybe cause some nightmares for the Bears moving forward?
Yeah, Musgrave was I believe either the 4th or 5th tight end taken in the draft. I think he went in the 2nd round. There's a lot of scouts that like Musgrave. He's got some good skills. He's a big, tall, muscular athlete. He runs really well for his size. He's a guy that only played 2 games last year, and throughout his career at Oregon State, the production really wasn't there. It wasn't utilized to his full capabilities, I felt. And then also he got injury. So like I said, only played 2 games last year. So I think that kind of hurt him. He went to the Senior Bowl and really showed that his ability to kind of separate from linebackers. For him, he's still a raw project, in my opinion. There's times you see him, dropping easy balls. He uses his body. There's a lot of body catches, in terms of caressing the ball and securing the ball with his body, with his frame. I like guys who just pluck the ball out of the air with their hands. So, he's a guy that's got skill sets, got some talent. Definitely the size speed ratio is excellent, but definitely a guy that's going to be a work in progress. And we talked about, in terms of his receivers, all 2nd and 3rd year, receivers, but don't be fooled. They're talented guys, especially Christian Watson. We saw him second half of that last season become that deep play, the big play threat for Aaron Rodgers last year. And Romeo Doubs, ups and downs last year, but also a guy who's, pretty good in terms of getting downfield and getting open and using his frame to make some nice catches. So, if they play, they're going to have some options, but yes, they are talented. They are young, but talented overall though.
Let's switch to sides of the ball real quick, and then we'll come back. But Danny, I need to get your opinion on what Jair Alexander might be able to do against DJ Moore, because I think that's going to be the premier matchup that a lot of people are talking about. The Bears' shiny new toy at wide receiver against an established cornerback like Jair Alexander. What do you expect that matchup to be like, and who could have the advantage there?
Well, the big thing, Joe Barry, the defensive corner, has been coming under a lot of scrutiny last season. Jair Alexander, I think, came out in the press, said he wants to follow, receivers, number one receivers across the field. And, he was predominantly used on zone and also used to play one side of the field. So I think Barry, from what I've seen in the reports, in terms of what's come out from Green Bay land is, obviously he's a disciple of the Vic Fangio theory, right? He's a guy that plays a lot of zone concepts, tries to confuse quarterbacks, tries to get to the quarterback with his front four guys. Saw Andy Herman's a good piece there in preview in terms of them getting younger, more athletic, getting upfield and causing pressure with their front four. But talk out of Green Bay is, they might actually start using Jair Alexander now to shadow receiver. So that's the matchup I'm going to look for early on in the game is, does Jair Alexander move to wherever DJ Moore is at? So if Moore's in the slot, is Alexander following him in the slot? Is Moore outside? So on and so forth. So I think that could be something where they try to utilize utilize Alexander to kind of wipe out DJ Moore and see if the other receivers, the Bears have the Moonies, the Claypools, even Cole Kmet and Robert Tonyan, see if they can make plays for Justin Fields.
All right, I said we're going to switch back to the offense. And we're going to stay with we're going to flip over defense. I lied. We're going to stay with the offense for a second. Alyssa, what are your expectations? Because we talked about this a little bit previously on the show. This is the first real Justin Fields versus Jordan Love chapter in this, I'm sure, to be a rivalry or a series that people are going to keep tabs on. They're going to say Justin Fields versus Jordan Love, 1-0, 1-1. This is how you get out to that early lead whenever you have kind of your first real matchup there. Is this, what do you think this could be a potential rivalry that goes on for 5, 6, 7 years in the NFC North, or do you think at least one of these guys is going to bust out before then?
I mean, I could definitely see it happening, but I don't think that the Packers are going to get lucky and get a third Hall of Fame quarterback. That's just not fair. That just doesn't happen. So, I mean, I could see Jordan Love. That's why, they signed him to that extension for the year, just to kind of see, give him an opportunity, because this is going to be his first year starting. He's kind of at a disadvantage in some regards in terms of, like we talked about, like the young and inexperienced cast, but they are talented. Still, you want to give him some time. Like with any quarterback, it's going to take some time, and they didn't really get a true chance to evaluate him. But I could see this being a nice rivalry where it's not completely one-sided, but perhaps the Bears have the better quarterback in this, even though it is close. And I mean, I think it would be fun because, Fields and Love are friends. They're the same agency. So it's something where, they're friends off the field, but it's, a rivalry on the field. So it could be something fun to see develop, but I'm really looking forward to hopefully the Bears actually having an advantage at quarterback for the first time in my life.
Yeah, that makes two of us. That would be great. I do want to go around the horn real quick and get to this question we got from Laz earlier in the show. It says, John, what is your prediction on Justin Fields' high mark in passing this year for a single game? Will he have a 400-yard game? Danny, I'll start with you, and then I'll go to Alyssa, and then I will probably just not answer because that's what I do, but I'll probably give my opinion. So, Danny, what do you think he will he have a 400-yard game this year?
I'll even top that, John. I think he has a 400-yard game that's also accompanied by a 100-yard rushing game too. So I think that's going to be a monster game for Justin Fields. I predict one of these weeks, maybe the Arizona Cardinals. We'll see what happens there. But I think that's where you're going to see Justin Fields pass for over 400 yards and also run for 100 yards.
Danny, you got me all tingly over there. Alyssa, good luck following that up.
I know. I'm like, how do I follow that up? Should I put money on this? Like, I'm like, oh man, I was just like, I'm hoping that he would have that kind of game. I was kind of more leaning towards like 300-yard game, 100-yard rushing game, just because, I mean, you only have so much time in the game, right? But I mean, I just want what Danny said to happen. Can we make that happen? That would be like all time for like a Bears quarterback. 130
yards and 2 passes in a preseason game, and those are like
that
behind
is
the line of
true.
scrimmage. So that if you go off of that, now you add, a full season. Tyler Scott getting incorporated with his deep play, speed. Robert Tonyan, guys, is going to be as long as he stays healthy, he's going to be a huge threat to this offense as well. So I think that's where I think some of these weapons are going to come into effect here as well.
Oh man, now you talked me into it. Like I was
I'm
borderline.
optimistic.
Now I'm thinking I can see definitely, because you look at the weapons. They're going to be in some games where they're going to have to throw the ball a lot, or they're going to have to try to score a bunch of points. It's just the nature of the league where you're going to have to try to outgun somebody at some point. And I think they finally have some of the weapons to do that. So there is going to have to be a game where he goes for 400 yards and hopefully rushes for 100 yards and throws for 3 touchdowns or what have you. So I think it will happen. Now, okay, Laz is throwing it out there again. If he stays healthy, will we have our first 4,000-yard passer for the Chicago Bears? I don't know if you can talk me into this one, but go ahead.
No. Laz, I think now you're getting a little too out of your skis here. So 4,000 yards, let's hold off on that right now. It's only his 3rd year in NFL, but it's only really his 2nd year for me, because this is the 2nd year in the season in this system. So I think he's only going to continue to get better, progress there, add more talent around him. I think he eventually will break that mark, but I just don't think it's going to be this year.
Yeah, Alyssa, I think we probably agree it's going to be under that, which I said last week. If the guy throws for 3,200, 3,300 yards and also runs for 800 or 900, that's still a damn good season. Like, I think that the way that we establish what a successful year is in 2023 is vastly different from what we thought it was, in 2003, 1993. The way that the game is played and the way that quarterbacks play is very different now. So you can't just say that there's one way to have a successful season. There's a number of ways to have a successful season, and I think Justin Fields has a route to have a very successful season. But let's talk about the guys in front of him, because there's already who would have thought there's already a shuffling around going on because of an injury. Tevin Jenkins not going to be out there. Alyssa, do you think this unit can gel quick enough to be a productive unit in front of Justin Fields and not have him running for his life?
That's the question here. But I mean, I think when you look at it, it looks like they're going to have Cody Whitehair at left guard and put Lucas Patrick at center, which he was brought in to do. So hopefully we get more than 10 snaps out of him at center before something happens. So, I mean, he's experienced in this offense. He got some work with the offensive line last season and now. So, I mean, that's the question. And they face a really big challenge right out of the gate going against the Packers. So, I mean, in pass protection, that's going to be the big one. Fields, one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league last season, and he only played 15 games, which is just, ridiculous. And then obviously you got to get that run game going. So, I mean, I'm hoping the offensive line, I mean, I'm not going to rush it, because this is also a unit that really didn't have the chance to develop continuity this summer because of injuries throughout. And then now your best offensive lineman is out for at least a month. So, I mean, there are going to be questions. That's definitely, I think, something that we got to watch. It could ultimately determine the outcome, which, I mean, we could see, more Justin Fields magic out there, because, he is at his best when, he just, when a play breaks down, he just goes make something happen.
Yep. And Danny, how do you feel about Lucas Patrick getting thrown in at center? I mean, that's what he was brought in to do. But that's not exactly what their plans were going into the beginning of the season. How comfortable do you feel with Lucas Patrick at center and then kicking Whitehair out?
Well, let's just put it this way. I'm more comfortable him at center than him at left guard. If he was playing left guard, I'd be petrified right now if I was the Bears. But, I think in center, he could probably be okay. But what really gives me some more, hope or makes me feel a little bit better is the veteran Dan Feeney they picked up. He's been on the team for almost 2 weeks now, week and a half. But he's a veteran, has been around the league, can play left guard, can play center. If Lucas Patrick just doesn't hold up against the point of attack, I think then you can always plug in Dan Feeney. Was he ready to start play week one? I don't know, but at least that's something that you can kind of replace him and put Feeney in there if you have to. But yeah, I mean Patrick at center, obviously he's the weakest link. But in terms of just overall gelling of this unit, that's the one thing that if I had to criticize Eberflus and his staff for the preseason was I just wanted the starters to kind of play more, both on offense and defense. A bunch of new players on both sides of the ball. Just not so much just to put up points or anything like that, just to kind of get that chemistry going. Break a sweat together and just gel on the field. That's something that we don't have on either side of the ball, and I think we're going to run into some of those issues probably early on here with week 1 and week 2. Let's
stick with the offense for a little bit longer. I want to go to this question from J2K. How much does Mercedes Lewis play. I see us running the ball a lot, and I'm sure he's hyped to play his old team. Talking about this game coming up against the Packers, Mercedes Lewis, who has been in the league since 1948, is a great blocker. So he's the ageless wonder. Alyssa, how much do you think Mercedes Lewis is actually incorporated into this game as a blocker? Probably not so much as a pass catcher, but we've seen him sneak out, engage and then release kind of thing. But how much do you think Mercedes Lewis is actually on the field?
I think you'll see a decent amount of snaps because, this is a Bears team that is going to run the ball first, and having that extra blocker and Cole Kmet is someone who can also do that. And how many former Packers do the Bears have on this team? I feel like Eberflus is someone who he wants to give these guys the opportunities to go out there and, have a solid showing against their former team. So, I think we'll see a lot because, we've talked a lot about Kmet and about Tunyon, but not a lot about Lewis. And this is, I think, the Bears' best tight end room that they've had in a very long time. And I think that Lewis, despite being like 98 years old, he's still playing football. I think he's going to be a big factor, I think, this season and also in this game. So, I'm excited to see how they utilize him because he's kind of been like the guy that's flown under the radar here.
Mm-hmm. Danny, do you think the Bears? You look at the names and you assume they do, but how much of an advantage do they have over the Packers right now in the tight end position? Because you have Cole Kmet, you bring in Tunyon, you have Mercedes Lewis, you got a ton of experience and a lot of diverse skill sets there. Is it safe to say that the Bears have a pretty decisive advantage at tight end?
Only because we've seen what Cole Kmet can do. We've seen what Robert Tunyon can do when healthy. And obviously we've seen what Mercedes Lewis can do over the years. But in terms of talent, the Packers have some talented kid, Tucker Kraft, the guy they got in the third round, big, another guy out of South Dakota, big physical tight end, probably got to be an inline tight end, but a guy that like a big body guy that can make plays down the field, but obviously the inexperience. So yes, right now you'd give the advantage to the Bears in their tight end room, definitely over what the Packers have currently.
So we're talking about advantages for the Chicago Bears over the Packers. I don't care if there's slight advantages.
Real quick, John, sorry to interrupt, but going back to Mercedes Lewis, one thing you'll notice, if the rookie tackles, Donald Wright, is getting hurt by the pass rush, you can always put Mercedes Lewis in there to help, chip and protect there as well. He can also help you in the pass protection too.
That's an incredible point because he's a good safety blanket to have where if one end is just, getting pulverized, you got a guy who's a really, really good blocker who can still catch the ball if you throw it to him. He's not going to be quick. He's not going to outrun anybody, but if you need 3 yards on an out, he can probably do that or, catch it in the back of the end zone if need be as well. So it's just another really good weapon and tool to be able to use if you have a young line or if you just need a couple extra weapons on the offensive side of the ball. Let's go ahead and jump over to the defensive side of the ball. And Danny, I want your opinion on this because with Jordan Love in there, I'm sure the offense is going to look different. But there's also this narrative that with Aaron Rodgers gone, Matt LaFleur can actually run the offense the way that he wants to run his offense. And so what does that mean? And is that a good thing or a bad thing?
No, it's true. It's been documented where Matt LaFleur, when you put in the system, actually, him and Luke Getsy and even the Hackett, who's over there now with the Jets, they all put it in the system, and then there was Rodgers kind of saying, nope, I don't like that play, don't like that play. So obviously they kind of defaulted to the MVP quarterback, the future Hall of Famer. So they pull a lot of stuff out of there. So his system is based off of the Kyle Shanahan wide zone. You see a lot of 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends. So they do a lot of wide zone concepts. They have some power concepts as well, in which they run 2 backs. A lot of downhill stuff. So the key there is you'll see AJ Dillon and you'll see Aaron Jones. I think they're going to be the storyline is the quarterbacks, the young quarterbacks, but the storyline in this game is going to be the offense, the running attack for both teams. Which team can establish the run and which defense cannot stop the run. I think that's where you're going to see the edge there and eventually the winner of this football game.
Alyssa, give me a guy who could really make or really, plant his flag in week 1 on the Bears defensive side of the ball. A guy that could really, start off the season and have his name be known, whether it's through a sack, an interception, or, just making tackle upon tackle upon tackle from the linebacker position. Well, who's a guy that you think can really establish himself in week 1 against this Green Bay offense?
Oh man, there's a few options there too. I mean, like Danny was talking about, I think my biggest concern, for this defense heading into this game is, can they stop the run? Because we saw what happened last season, especially in that first meeting in week 2 when Aaron Jones just did whatever he wanted against them. So I mean, I'm really going to be looking at that front seven and seeing if they can stop the run. I mean, I want to go with Tremaine Edmonds because, he's the guy that, you paid the big money to. He's supposed to come in here. He's going to be a big part of that. Also in coverage. I mean, there's a lot of, there's a lot of guys. I know, John, you put me on the spot. I'm trying to
I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
But I mean, I guess I'd go Edmonds, but there's a lot because depending on how we look at it, I guess coming from the run game, Justin Jones, being brought back as the 3-tech. I mean, Andrew Billings, I think, because he was brought in to be that run stuffer, he's going to face a tall order, I think, against this Packers rushing attack. So that's where my eyes are going to be glued in the trenches on defense. So, I mean, I'm hoping the Bears are up for it because in the preseason, at least the very limited amount of snaps that we saw the starters out there for in that last game, it wasn't encouraging. They couldn't stop anything from the Bills. So, I mean, that's definitely going to be the battle to watch.
Danny, who do you hope puts their stamp on this game, whether it be a young guy, a rookie they drafted, or maybe a guy that they invested a good amount of money in that you hope the investment's going to pay off? Who are you hoping has a big game and kind of sets the tone for the rest of the season?
Well, I mean, let's hit both of the guys I was talking about. Justin Jones came out and said he hates the Packers and all that stuff. So, this is the time for you to step up. And I am terrified of the Bears run defense. I was terrified last year. I still have, PTSD from last season's run defense. And this preseason didn't help anything in terms of calming down my fears. So I talked about earlier, Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon's going to be there all day. The Bears are got to stop. So might as well get the leader of that defensive line, Justin Jones, get out there and make a presence known, let them know they're not going to be able to run against you guys and make them, put the game on Jordan Love, a guy who's making his, his second career start, his first, opening week, start of his career, young guy, obviously with young players around him, make Jordan Love beat you. Do not allow Matt LaFleur's play calling and the running attack beat you.
Maybe this is the meatball in me, but I just want to see them get after Jordan Love. I want to see him not be comfortable in the pocket. I want to see him forcing throws. I want to see him uneasy with the football, scrambling, maybe just, making some errant throws, maybe throwing it up. And you see someone like Jalen Johnson or a Tyreek Stevenson come down with an interception that can really tilt the game in the Bears' favor. I want to see the pass rush. I don't care who it is. Honestly, God, I don't care who it is, but I want somebody to get after the quarterback because after last season, I just want someone to be at the quarterback. Somebody get close to the quarterback before he throws it. We can't have Jaquan Brisker being the sacks leader on the football team again. So somebody needs to set the tone that says we're actually going to get after the quarterback a little bit and not give him 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes to throw the football where he can just hang out and just, wait for everyone to break off their routes and they can run these long developing routes because they know the Bears aren't ever going to get home. So I just want to see somebody get to the quarterback. You'll be my defensive MVP if you can get to the quarterback.
But you got to stop the run first. You stop the run,
well,
you have the right to get to the quarterback then.
You're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. No, yeah, because if they're running the ball, Danny, they're going to do it all day. They're not going to take the ball out of the running back's hands and put it in Jordan Love's hands if they're running the ball down the Bears' throat. They're just going to keep doing that. So you're right. They have to stop the run first, and then somebody pin your ears back and get to the quarterback. We were talking a lot about week 1. But this is a time for prognosticating, as Alyssa alluded to earlier in the show, where we can talk about the season as a whole. And I kind of want to look at the season as a whole. And we have a nifty little graphic that Aldo Gandia has been working on. It's the games 1 through 17, where we can look over and talk about how many wins we think this team might actually get. And then we can go back and make fun of ourselves in December. But when you're looking over that schedule, and you know what, Alyssa, since you had the luxury of seeing this graphic before, I'm going to put you on the spot first. Whenever you can go over that graphic and say, how many wins do you think the Bears are actually going to get this year? What's their floor? What's their ceiling? And once again, this is probably very captivating for everyone listening to the audio version on the podcast. However, we're doing this live and we're doing it visually. So we have the 2023 schedule graphic up, weeks 1 through 18. Alyssa, I've stalled enough. How many wins do you think this team's going to have?
Well, lucky I actually made my season prediction a couple days ago and posted on Bears Wars. So, I mean, just straight up, like my prediction, I would say 8 and 9. But if we're talking kind of like floor, I would probably say 7 wins. Maybe, I mean, 6 at the worst, but like, I mean, it's a pretty favorable schedule. There are a lot of winnable games. And when you look at how close this team played last season, considering I think they had one of the worst rosters in the league, right?
Yeah.
So how closely they were able to play, you know, some of the best teams in the NFL, that when you kind of look at that performance, what Eberflus was able to get out of those guys, I think that, you know, they should be much better with an improved roster. So there are a lot of favorable games on here. I think in terms of ceiling, I'm going to go through this. Okay. So 1, 2, 3.
The gears are spinning right now.
Let's go game by game.
Let's go game by game. I'm counting in my head. Okay.
We got the time. Week 1 against the Packers. I think they can win that.
Yes, for sure.
So I got to win there too. So that's 1-0.
We're 1-0, guys. 1-0.
Against the Buccaneers, who I think are going to be way down this year. They're going to be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. I think that's a win as well.
Yep.
Win.
So the fact the Packers are the second youngest team, second only to the Buccaneers. So yes, I think that's they're 2-0.
Okay, I think that's we're not being homers. I think that's a legitimate prediction there. And then week 3, now you can be a homer if you want to, because I don't think they're going to beat the Chiefs.
No. Lost.
Okay, but I will say that'll be a really good barometer to see how they match up against one of the elite teams in the NFL. If they get their doors blown off, then you still got a lot of work to do. If they're keeping it tight in the 3rd, 4th quarter, and then it turns out to be a 8, 9, 10 win game, then okay, you're building something. You hung with a really good team. But if it's from start to finish, they're outclassed, and it's like, okay, this team's got a lot of work to do. So I think at least that's a good barometer moving forward. Week 4, the Broncos are a big mystery. We don't know what Sean Payton's going to have, what kind of effect he's going to have on this team. We don't know if Russell Wilson is washed. We don't even know if that's a good relationship right now, if they're looking to even jettison with Russell Wilson, if they can get out of that contract. I honestly think that can be a win. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I was wavering on this one too. Same points that you had. You know, is Russell Wilson back? Is Sean Payton, you know, going to keep him there? You know, do they start off rough and then he benches him for Jarrett Stidham? It all depends on how the Broncos roll in here on week 4. But yeah, I mean, just to kind of be conservative, I went with a loss just to go 2-2.
Okay, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was the same way too. I was kind of like, when the schedule's first released, when I did like game by game predictions, I was like, okay, I had that as a win. And then now I'm kind of back and forth. I'm like, again, it's the mystery of it on offense. Is Russ going to get back to, you know, the player he was? What about that defense? How do the Bears respond? But this game is in Chicago, which helps. But I did mark this as a loss.
Yeah, my deciding factor was this will be at Soldier Field, that's I mean, not to say that's the end all be all, but if I'm wavering and the game's at Soldier Field, I'm gonna give it to the Bears. So I have them currently at 3-1, and then Alyssa, what did you say, win or loss?
Loss.
Okay, so you're at 2-2, Danny's at 2-2, and these are conservative estimates. Then they have a Thursday night game on the road at the Commanders in DC. I'm actually going to go to this game because, you know, the last Thursday night game against Washington was so good that I'm like, I can't miss this. I cannot miss the sequel. I have to go watch this. But I think for me, that's a win because there's a lot of uncertainty at the quarterback situation. There's a lot of uncertainty at the coaching situation. They do have some talent on that team, but I just think that's a game that is going to be ripe for the picking for the Bears to win, and they can take advantage of an inexperienced quarterback.
Yeah, I had a win too, and also because it's my birthday, and they better win on my birthday.
There you go.
But I mean, watching the game last season, I mean, that's a game that the Bears should have won, and I really hope it's not as awful as it was last season. Just hopefully it's the Bears pounding on Washington, though. I'm curious to see, you know, Sam Howell and how he is through that first month heading into that game. So that'll be interesting. But I do have this one as a win.
Yeah, for me too. This was the one of the ones going back and forth on. I mean, defensively, Washington has got tons of talent on that side of the football. Offensively, they got some pretty good weapons on the outside with Jahan Dotson and obviously, you know, Terry McLaurin. But again, I'm not jumping on the Sam wagon. I'm not a believer in Sam Howell, and I think the Bears can go out there and you know, sneak out a victory. So I got them, you know, rebounding off their 2 back-to-back losses to go 3-2 here.
Sam Howell. Okay, let's go into week 6. Oh, by the way, I have the Bears at 4-1. What am I doing? Okay.
Oh my God, John, I love you.
Let me get some of that Kool-Aid, John. Let me get some of that Kool-Aid.
What am I doing? Okay. We're going into week 5, and I actually had this as a win because I think they're going to split with the Vikings this year, and this is their home game, so I put this one down as a win just because I don't think that the Vikings can replicate what they did last year and win all those one-score games. They obviously lost Dalvin Cook. They're kind of in like this mini rebuild type thing. I think that they can beat them at home. And I think they're going to split with the Vikings. So I'm going to have them as a win. And I don't like this because I have the Bears at 5-1. I don't think they're going to be 5-1. So I'm just trying to figure out where I'm going to be wrong. But currently, as we go through this, I have them at 5-1.
I got him in there for a win as well. I'm not a Kirk Cousins fan. He puts up great fantasy stats, but it doesn't always abide. And I agree. They're in like a little mini rebuild here. Defensively, they brought in Brian Blades as a new defensive coordinator. He's an aggressive guy. I think the Bears can maybe catch them on a couple of zero blitzes here and there, put a couple of points up. Hey, the Bears get rolling here. They're 4-2.
Yeah, I had this as a win as well. Kind of looking back at last season, at least the one game where you had starters playing, right? Because that last game at the end of the year, it didn't count. When you look at that first game, obviously it was kind of ugly in the first half, but the Bears really played them well, and they came within an Amir Smith-Marset fumble of winning that game. So I think that this is a game that, especially this is the one that's in Chicago, that will also be a big factor. I have them splitting, like John, you were saying, a lot of those one-score wins that the Vikings were getting. The Bears lost a lot of those one-score games too last year, and I think that this season we're going to start to see them kind of win some of those. So I think this is one of them.
Okay, after these games, Danny has them at 4-2, Alyssa at 4-2, me at 5-1, and
like it.
I freaking have them beating the Raiders the next week too. So I mean, it just the way that the schedule's chopping up, I have the Bears at 6-1. Just because I'm going through this game by game, do I expect them to be 6-1? Not really, but the way we're doing this in real time, I have them at 6-1 just because I think the Raiders take a step back. I don't know if Josh McDaniels is going to be long for the Raiders with a lot of the things that's been going on there. Jimmy Garoppolo, if he's the quarterback, I mean, he's kind of, is he already hurt going into the season? Is he going to get hurt again? There's a lot of uncertainty there. They do have Devontae Adams, but I just feel like that's kind of a franchise in flux right now. And at home, I think they can beat the Las Vegas Raiders. So I have this one as a win.
Yeah, I'm with you there too. Jimmy Garoppolo will be hurt. Aiden O'Connell, rookies, is back up. He'll be playing in that game. Josh McDaniels is already starting, get enemies in that locker room. Have you seen Chandler Jones's recent tweets on his Instagram? So I think that's a team in disarray. And I think by the time they get here in week 7, Josh McDaniels may not even be the head coach. So yeah, I think that's a win there for them as well.
Yeah, this is one earlier I was going back and forth on, but I landed where you guys did with the win. I mean, this is, a team that's going to be competing for that top draft pick, perhaps. So, and like you said, Josh McDaniels might even be there. So, I mean, I kind of hope so, because that would be nice. I still think they're going to win this game. And what is that? What are we at? So, John, you're at 6-1.
I'm at 6-1, and you guys are both at 5-2. But don't worry, we're hitting the wall now because they're on the road. They're on the road against the Chargers. I think the Chargers are going to be a surprise team this year. I think they're going to be really good with Kellen Moore as their offensive coordinator, kind of change that around. That's what they were kind of lacking at last year. So I think that the Chargers are going to be really good. It'll be if the Bears are going to win this game, it's going to have to be a shootout. I just don't see it going on the road. Although a road game against the Chargers is usually a home game for the opposing team. However, I just think they're going to be really good this year. So I have that one as a loss.
Yeah, I have that as a loss as well. And I think the first thing when Danny was talking about, like Fields having that 400-yard passing game and 100-yard rushing game, this is the opponent in the game that I thought of, because this is going to be a shootout. And this is a game where I think that if the Bears can match them blow for blow, this is still one where maybe, if you lose it, it's still kind of encouraging. I mean, that, the offense is able to keep up with them, especially if Fields has 400 passing yards, 100 rushing yards. I mean, at that same time, they should win. But, I mean, I still have this as a loss. But, I mean, I'm excited to see if the Bears offense can kind of go blow to blow with Justin Herbert.
Guys, this is the NFL, any given Sunday. And Kellen Moore loves to throw the ball. And that plays into the hands of the Bears, because I believe the Bears by this time, their secondary is going to be rolling. I have fears about the defensive line, but I don't have any questions about the young secondary. I think they're going to be, the standout unit of this defense. I think they go in there and they shock the Chargers, and I go in there because, like John said, half that stadium's going to be Chicago Bears fans, guys.
Yeah.
You know it. So it's nice weather. It's in October. Chicagoans are going to flock to LA. And I think that's going to be a partial crowd there. And I think the Bears there's always a shocker here and there on the schedule. And they're going to pull a dud on a team that you expect them to beat. So I think this is where they come in and they shock the world with the win here. And this is where you start seeing ESPN and everybody else talking about Justin Fields MVP hype.
So this is the 400-yard passing game, 100-yard rushing game?
No.
Well, Danny just pulled parallel with me because we both have the team at 6-2 then. Alyssa at 5-3. And apparently we're not allowed to go over the rest of the season because Aldo pulled the graphic and I have no idea. There we go.
I like that.
Aldo's like, you know what? Stop it. We're done. 6-2. That's good enough. Stop the season. They're in the playoffs. So let's go to week 9. They're on the road against the New Orleans Saints. I have this one as a loss because I think it's really hard to play down in New Orleans. Alvin Kamara will be back by then. David Carr will be fully immersed in whatever system they're running, and they have a lot of talent in Chris Olave and Michael Thomas if he's healthy as well. I think that's a I don't want to say a really good team, but I just think that on the road in New Orleans against that team will be tough. I have that one as a loss.
Yeah, me too. New Orleans is one of the hardest stadiums to go and get a victory out of, so that's a loss for me as well.
Make it 3 for 3. That's a loss. Like you said, that environment, very difficult to play in. And I do think that's an improved Saints team. So that'll be a difficult one, challenge for Chicago. But I think that New Orleans has got that.
And then they go on the short week in week 10, two Thursday night games this year. The next one against Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. I think the Panthers are going to be a lot better than what people give them credit for. I mean, their division is junk, so they're going to have a real chance to win that division. It's at home. I'm going to give this one a win just because they're going to be a very young team. I don't even know who's going to be playing receiver for them at that point because they got some guys banged up. They bring in Adam Thielen. They have Jonathan Mingo, the young guy. I think DJ Chark is there, but there's just kind of Miles Sanders is the running back. They got kind of a hodgepodge of guys there. I think they're going to be better than what people are giving them credit for, but I still think that they are going to defend their home turf on Thursday. On the short week against the Panthers.
I agree.
Yeah, I got this.
I think it's a win as well.
Yep. Give it a win.
So right now I got the Bears at 7-3. Alyssa is at 6-4, and Danny is at 7-3. What is going on here? Okay, let's hit reality.
Speak it into existence.
Now we're on reality here because I have
here we go.
2-game losing streak. I have them losing on the road against the Lions at Detroit. They're the favorites to win the division right now. So I think that this is that they're gonna maybe fall flat against Dan Campbell and the Lions on the road. Danny, what do you think?
I agree. The Lions are going to be obviously a team that's going to be contending for the division title. I think they're going to be a team here, assuming health and everything. I think they're going to be a competitive team, especially at home. They have a lot of young talent on defense, so I think they're going to be tough to beat there. So I give them a loss here.
Yeah, I agree. I'm giving this a loss. I'm not going to. I know I'm getting ahead, but I have them winning at least one, but it's not going to be on the road in Detroit. It's always difficult to win out there. And I do think it'll be a competitive game, but I just think the Lions will come out on top.
All right, let's go. Let's go. We're staying.
No.
I've never been startled on this podcast
before. I felt like it was a horror movie.
I'm startled. And so let's just get back on the road because I want to leave that as far in the dust as possible. Let's go. Let's go. We're on the road on Monday night against the Vikings at Minnesota. I have this one as a loss just because I said they were going to split with Minnesota. I think they defend their home turf in week 6. I think they probably drop one against the Vikings in week 12. This is back-to-back road games. That's after, back-to-back road games after a Thursday night game. We get a little bit of a break, but I still think that they're going to split with the Vikings. I have this one as a loss.
I agree. And it sucks because it's a division game, obviously means more division games than the non-division games, but I want to give it to them. But yeah, I agree with you. I think they're going to split with Minnesota, winning at home and then unfortunately losing here.
make it 3. I think this is a loss as well. They're going to split, and I think they get the win at home. But and on primetime too. You know, they have some difficult primetime games, so that'll be a good one to watch.
And then they have a bye week 13, and
Win.
then they can't lose.
Surprised they didn't even win that.
It's a win.
Yeah, you know what? We're just going to add an extra win there. Okay,
I'm good with that.
Then let's go into week 14. They're home against the Lions. Maybe I'm giving the Lions too much credit, and it's really weird for me to give the Lions credit because they haven't done it yet, and and in my lifetime they haven't really done it. But I just feel like they're going to be better than what a lot of people are giving them credit. I know they're the division favorite for a lot of people, but I think that's where it stopped for a lot of people. I don't see them going. A lot of people don't predict them going very far per se. I think they're going to be a good team. I think the Bears might drop 2 to them, so I have them losing at home against the Lions as well.
I think the Lions take a cheap shot at Justin Fields on that Week 11 game. I think the Bears don't forget that. They come here, and they're coming off of a bye week. They are going to be pumped up about that, and they're going to go out there and they're going to pull off an upset here. I think they beat the Lions.
So you're writing the script here. You got revenge on the mind here.
Can you tell us how it ends? Well, I know we're getting there.
It's going to be a game where it's going to be like a 31-27 kind of game.
I didn't know Stephen King was on this podcast, writing narrative for everything going forward. Alyssa, how do you have them against the Lions the second time?
Yeah, I have them winning one. I know the Lions swept them last year, but especially that first game, it was a close one. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to pick the Lions to sweep them, or my family will never let me hear the end of it.
There you go. So Danny just overtook me because Alyssa and I both have the Bears at 7-6 at this point, and Danny has them at 8-5 going into Cleveland. It's going to be a road game. We don't know when it's going to be played, but once again, I'm higher on the Browns than a lot of people are going to be. I think they're going to be pretty good this year. Yeah. I just think that they're with whatever, Deshaun Watson will probably play better this year. They got a great running back in Nick Chubb, and Amari Cooper is a really good wide receiver with Njoku at tight end. And I just think they're going to be a lot better than what people think they're going to be. That's going to be a tough game in Cleveland. I have them losing that game and going to 500 at 7-7.
Yeah, the Dog Pound's another hard place to play. Deshaun Watson's going to rebound and become the Deshaun Watson that everyone saw at Houston, and one who earned that that big contract. I agree, in terms of the weapons on the outside, plus their defense. They have a ton of playmakers all over that defense, led by Myles Garrett. I think that's going to be a tough environment. I think the Bears lose here.
Yeah, I had this as a loss as well, but Justin Fields will not be sacked 9 times, unlike the last time he played this team. Plus, that is another road game, too. So, yeah, I think that's going to be a tough environment. So that's a loss for me.
Well, here's when things get a little bit easier. They're at home against the Cardinals. You can see, if you're watching the video portion of this, you see the Christmas lights around there. So I think the Cardinals are going to be awful. Whether Kyler Murray's the quarterback or not, I think they're going to be awful. I think that they're also going to be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. They're at home against a bad Cardinals team. I see this as a win. I don't need to go into much depth about this, but I just think that I think that's a win.
Yep, and this is listen. This is the 400 yards passing, 100 yards rushing game.
There it is.
Arizona Cardinals, who Jonathan Gannon. I don't know, guys, if you guys have seen this guy. This guy looks like, at least from the clippings, like he's way over his head. So we'll see what happens here. But this is the game where I think the Bears come back. It's a Christmas Day gift for all of us Bears fans, and I think they mop the Cardinals and send them along their merry way.
Love it.
Petition for Danny just to write the script, because I'm loving this so much, and I do also have this as a win. Like you said, John, I think this can be a very bad Cardinals team. They actually remind me a lot of the Bears last season. So we saw how that turned out. So yeah, I have this as a win, and Merry Christmas, and hey, go off, Justin Fields, go off.
Now, next game, week 17, not as easy as I originally thought it might be. They're home against the Falcons, but they also got a brand new toy in Bijan Robinson. And if we're scared of the Bears' run defense against Green Bay, we should also be pretty afraid against somebody like Bijan Robinson and the Falcons, who want to just run the ball. Do I have a lot of confidence in Desmond Ridder? Not really, but they do have some nice weapons. I think that they could be, but that once again, that division is down. They might have a chance to win that division late in the season. They might have something to play for, but it is at Soldier Field, so I'm going to give them a win over the Falcons. But I think that's going to be a really ugly game. I don't think that's going to be a runaway.
Yeah, I remember when I told you versus the Chargers, they always, the NFL schedule, there's always a win where you don't expect it, and there's always a clunker where you don't expect it. This is going to be the clunker. It's New Year's Eve. The guys are a young team. They already got their New Year's Eve plans ready to go. Falcons going to come in here probably sub 500. They take them for granted, and like I said, Bijan Robinson, Drake London on the outside, Desmond Ridder, who I think is a very underrated prospect in terms of the quarterback. I think this is a team that comes in here and unfortunately ruins their New Year's Eve, and I think this is a loss here.
It ruined my New Year's Eve too.
Right. Yeah, I had this as a loss too. I was kind of going back and forth between like with the Raiders and the Falcons game, just kind of like win, loss, and I settled on this one being a loss. Good point made by Danny. But man, that's a brutal way to ring in the new year. But hey, maybe there's a playoff spot.
Well, guys, going into the final week 18, I have them at 9-7. Danny has them at 9-7, and Alyssa has them at 8-8. So this might actually be something to play for with the 7th seed, maybe at stake, or possibly the division at stake, depending on how bad the NFC North is this year. But this could be an incredibly important game on the road at Lambeau in Green Bay. Danny, do they win this game, and could they possibly get into the playoffs with this game?
Well, since I have them splitting every single game with a division rival, I'm winning week 1, then I got them losing this game here. I'm assuming that the Packers are going to be involved there as well somehow in terms of whether it's contending for a playoff spot, a wild card, or just trying to ruin the Bears' chances of getting into the playoffs. Lambeau is always tough for the Bears to go out there and win. So I'm going to stick to what I've been doing throughout the whole schedule, splitting the division games home and away. So unfortunately, this is going to be a loss. So we're going to need some help here from other teams to get into the playoffs with 9 wins.
What do you think, Alyssa?
Yeah, I have this as a loss too. It feels just kind of like the Lions there too. But I have them at 8 and 9 to finish the year. Kind of like Danny, I had them splitting. I mean, I've even said in the past, like, I'm not going to pick the Bears to beat the Packers until they actually beat the Packers. So there's no way I could beat them to sweep them in these preseason predictions. So I'm going to make that a loss, and they finish 8 and 9.
I just remembered I didn't give my prediction, but I also have this one as a loss. I just have them splitting with Green Bay, which I think most Bears fans would have taken in the last 5 years if you say you split with Green Bay. So I'm not going to get too greedy here. I think that they could come up short with that one in Green Bay. So ultimately, I have the Bears at 9 and 8. Danny has them at 9 and 8, and Alyssa at 8 and 9, which means they're going to be in the hunt. They're going to be one of those teams they're talking about in the last 3-4 weeks about can they squeak into the playoffs. And I think that, we went through all of them. There's a real route there to anywhere between 8 and 10 wins. There's a real route there. I'm not saying they're going to be 10 and 7. I'm not saying they're not going to be 6 and 6 and 11. They're not going to be 6 and 11. They could be set. I'm still trying to do this 17 math because I've been doing 16 for my entire life, and now I'm trying to figure out what numbers actually equate to 17, because if you hadn't noticed, I was not a math major in college. So yeah, I was a broadcast major, and now I have to do math, which they said I wouldn't have to do, but now I'm doing it. So I don't see them being down at 6 and 11. I don't even necessarily see them down being 7 and 10. I think they're going to be in that 8, 9, 10 range right there. I think that's safe to say. And quite frankly, shouldn't they be? I mean, this is year 2 of that rebuild and that escalation. They don't have to be Super Bowl contenders this year. They don't have to make a deep playoff run. But guys, isn't this what is kind of necessary in that next step where you got the number 1 overall pick, you added all this stuff? Now you got to be competitive. You can be in the basement, then you got to be competitive, and then you got to be a winner. And then you got to make a deep dive, and then you can be a champion. But you got to have to, you just don't go from, A to D. There has to be that A-B progression, and they kind of need it this year. Alyssa, I'll start with you, and then Danny, I want you to jump in right after. This is what's necessary, right? This is if not, it's kind of a failure.
Oh, absolutely. And this is, what we were talking about with last season. It was kind of like a freebie year where we understood they were going to be bad. We even went into that season expecting them to be bad, but just wanting to see progress wherever it was. And we did in little bits here and there. But now is when you need to start showing signs. And again, like we talked about them kind of following a similar trajectory to the Lions last season, where, they had that talent in place. They have like the coaches in place, but you can't fix everything in one off season. We're seeing Ryan Poles start, he's addressed it. And now I think you're going to see a big step this season. I expect them to be in the hunt and contend for the playoffs, but I don't necessarily expect them to make it this season. So, but we do need to see tangible progress from Justin Fields and from this roster as a whole, from, these players who are going to be cornerstones of the roster.
Yeah, I mean, you went from a three-win team last year, you lost your 10 straight games at the end of the season to a 9-win, team. If everything goes our way, that's a huge step up. You might not make the playoffs, which is fine, but it's a building block. And now you've gotten, year 2 with Eberflus and his his staff and everything, you've got your building blocks in place. Now you go and add more people, whether it's more free agents, another draft class, hopefully top 2 first-round picks, continue to add to that talent pool. Now we go up to the next level, which is 10, 11, 12 games. Now you're contending for division title. So I think this is natural progression. And guys, we know the NFL schedule, it's quirky, right? Things happen. I said it earlier, any given Sunday, we just went through and we saw 9 possible victories. There's a couple games that are probably going to, we thought they're going to win. They might lose. A couple games that we thought they're going to lose, they might win. So, anywhere between 9 and 10, a couple lucky breaks. Like look at Minnesota last year. How many last second, no doubt, this rarely happens kind of thing happened to Minnesota, and they pulled off, what was it, 12 wins last year? I forgot how many totals they got. So, the things like that happen. You get on a roll. You're a young team. You believe in yourself. You have a young quarterback, dynamic player, playmaker, and Justin Fields. Again, for me, it goes back to the offense and defensive lines. This offensive line, this revamped offensive line does what we think it should do. And for me, it's just, give Justin Fields enough time, but dominate in terms of as a run blocking unit. And then defensively, you got to improve that run defense. If you can, stop the run and then help, get after the quarterback with Yannick Ngakoue and Walker and some of the other guys, you can, create some turnovers. And next thing you know, a tip here, tip there, and a ball can go your way. And, you get on a roll, you get confidence, anything happens there. So I just think that they're too young to predict to them being a playoff team, but I also see the talent. I just looked over the rosters from last year, opening week to this year, opening week. And just the abundance of talent that's been added to the roster. It's night and day. We talked about earlier, we were making fun of the receiver room, right? We were like, Byron Pringle was one of our bigger, receiving, additions, and then Lucas Patrick was our best offensive line we added, in terms of free agency. I mean, these are what we were looking forward to last year. Now we got playmakers and DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, the offensive line. I think that Nate Davis and Darnell Wright, combination on the right side is gonna be powerful. Those guys are powerful people movers. They're gonna get people off their, defensive linemen retreating backwards and, making holes for this running attack. So that's why you build your attack around the running game, and now you use the play action and then Justin's, playmaking abilities, and you can put points on the board.
And for me, Danny, it's all about, are they building a sustainable, winnable, winning window? Because we've seen this a lot of times as Bears fans, where they'll have a flash in the pan season, 2018, and then the wheels fall off. And it's just, and then during that, short little winning season or that short little window, they're, getting rid of all their draft capital and moving up and taking guys. And then that window that you thought was going to be open for 3 or 4 years all of a sudden was shut after 1 season. And so, and they're not a team that notoriously makes back-to-back playoff seasons. You can look over the last 30 some years, how many times they've went back to back in the playoffs. It's I think it's maybe 3 times, and that's including the time they fell ass backwards into the 7th seed back in 2020. So I think that, or 2019. So I think that what I want is a strong foundation that is actually sustainable, where you're not just putting all your chips in and saying, let's hope that we actually hit for, 1 or 2 years. And if we don't, okay, let's get a new GM and a new head coach in here. You can build it slow. A slow build is fine, because and right now they're building and they still have draft capital. They're going to be a pretty good team, and they still have a lot of draft capital. So go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll finish with,
I was just going to say, I just want something that is sustainable, where we're not getting all excited and we think we have this bright new shiny team, and then in 2 years it looks nothing like it used to a couple of years ago, where everything fell apart within a year, and we're talking about another rebuild, another quarterback, another coach, another GM, and we're doing the same show over and over again, because it makes for a really boring podcast when we say the same things over and over and over again. But when the team keeps doing it over and over and over again, there's not much else we can talk about. Go ahead, Dan.
Right, and I believe wholeheartedly that you build your team. You've heard me. You've covered 2 drafts with me. Alyssa, you've heard me probably babble on these airwaves before. The offense and defensive line are key, and I think we finally have a general manager in Ryan Poles that actually believes in that, and that believes building it the right way. I think the investment in the offensive line with Nate Davis and Darnell Wright this offseason, I think obviously you got to keep adding to that. They can't stop there. And I think the 2 young guys that tackles Gervon Dexter and Zach Pickens in the middle. Now, obviously, you couldn't get the end guy, you couldn't get the edge guy, you went and got Yannick for 1 year, but now you got 2 first-round picks next year. You go ahead and invest that in an edge rusher. You go get another receiver for Justin Fields. So on and so forth. I think, and he's shown so much restraint, especially in the free agent market, where the previous guys and Emery and Ryan Pace, they just threw out there, got money, killed cap, and just threw money out there, and then just went and got players. I think he's building it the right way. Again, it's only been 2 years, so let's see how he maintains this. If he maintains this kind of patience and this kind of being able to play that cap nicely. Like for me, I was out there saying go sign Yannick Ngakoue now, but he waited, and eventually got him for that 1 year, $10 million deal. And I think you're gonna have another motivated player come in here and trying to earn another multi-year contract next year. So I think that's the way you play it. But again, just build that offense and defensive line. Bring in young, talented players, and then just and then now you build your offense in terms of skill position around Justin Fields.
All right, before we get out of here, I'm going to ask the real important question, and then we'll head out of here. What will your setup look like on Sunday when football starts? All right, because Alyssa, I know you got to probably put about 14 articles before the Bears even kick off, and then 45 articles after the kickoff, 6 at halftime, 100 after the game. So, what is your setup going to look like on Sunday? Because the Bears don't play till the late game or the late afternoon game. So, how are you going to be enjoying the 1 o'clock game? I guess if you're in the noon games if you're in the Central Time Zone, but for us, the 1 o'clock games.
Yeah, I'm going to be enjoying my new Sunday ticket through YouTube TV that I got through work, so that's great.
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor. But I'm going to be enjoying Sunday ticket and getting to kind of just enjoy the fact that football's back. I mean, I might go out to a sports bar, just to, the environment, it being week 1 and all that. But I'm also going to have my laptop right by me because Enactus will come out. And so I'm going to have my laptop, big screen TV, and you know what? I'll have a nice beer. I'm not gonna drink during the game because I have a job to do. But I'll have a beer to celebrate opening week.
Celebratory beer, nice.
Celebratory beer.
What about you, Danny?
Yeah, a similar thing. Like I got a big screen TV. I'm going to have the red zone on. I got 2 fantasy football teams going, and so I got make sure all my guys are hopefully putting up some points. By the way, I put my money where my mouth is. I got Justin Fields on both my leagues. I made sure I had auction leagues, and I made sure I'd spend as much I needed to get Justin Fields on my roster. So, that's how much belief I have in this kid. So I'll be watching that, and obviously then getting ready for the Bears game, and then obviously doing halftime and post game with you and Coach T. Looking forward to that.
Absolutely. I'll be in my man cave. I will have 3 TVs set up to go through because I also have a Sunday ticket. I'll be watching the Bears not a sponsor. In the middle TV, and then I'll have 2 games on the left and the right. I'll have my computer set up to check my fantasy team, and of course I'll be doing halftime and post-game show with you and Coach T, which I'll plug here in a second. But it's like Christmas. I can't wait to set up everything and just watch a full day of football. And then there's a Sunday night game, and then there's a Monday night game, and then there's a Thursday night game, and then there's always games. It just makes me so excited. I can't wait to just keep watching football until January. We're set until January, guys. The wait's over. It's
the most wonderful time of the year. I'm starting to sing Christmas carols.
It does feel like Christmas. But before we go too far off the rails, that's going to wrap up this week's show. Before we shut it down, Alyssa, tell us what's happening over at Bears Wire and everything else that you're working on. Where people can find your stuff.
Make sure you check out Bears Wire for all the latest news and analysis ahead of the week 1 game against the Packers. We got news, we got breakdowns, we got game picks coming up, and stay tuned after Sunday's game for some detailed analysis of what's hopefully going to be a Bears win over the Packers, something that this show, at least I don't think I've been able to celebrate on this show, and then come back to Buffone 55 next week.
Love it. Danny, what are you working on? Where can people find your stuff? Because you got so much knowledge that I feel like people need to be able to see that a little bit more. So give them what they want.
Other than just getting ready for the upcoming weekend's games, obviously I'm still, Draft on Tap is in hiatus until after the season, but that doesn't mean I'm not scouting and looking at draft prospects. And just like last week's game, FSU versus LSU. I mean, that's a game that's littered with NFL hopefuls and NFL prospects. So I'll be watching Texas versus Alabama this week. That's the game I'm going to be highlighting. And then during this season, I'm going to start posting some scouting reports on some prospects that Bears fans should be kind of keeping an eye on throughout the college football season. And then obviously, once the season ends, whenever that is, we'll come back here again with Draft on Tap and then get full bore into breaking down prospects. But I also might be doing something in terms of a weekly spotlight on the Bears game. So keep tuned for that, and we'll post it out there when it's available.
Excellent. And don't forget to join Danny, me, and our new analyst, Coach T, on Bear Football right after the Bears game. The three of us will share our immediate reactions, carry Coach Eberflus and Justin Fields' press conferences, and break down key plays of the game. As soon as the clock hits 000, we go live, and we hope you join us in the chat room. But that will do it for us tonight. For Alyssa Barbieri and Danny Shimon, I'm John Buffone. We'll see you next week right here on Buffone 55. It's week 1, baby. Kickoff is right around the corner. Bears, Packers. We'll see you next week.
Hey, Chicago Bear fans, I know you cannot get enough of the Green Bay Packers. So if you're interested, make sure to check out the Pack-A-Day podcast. You can find it wherever you get your favorite podcasts, as well as on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL and find the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast. Go Pack.